Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're unlocking the architectural secrets and honestly, the psychological terrors of Edgar Allan Poe's 1842 chilling masterpiece, The Masque of the Red Death. If you've ever been fascinated by how literature uses physical space to represent the human mind and our literal march through time, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to decode this story's incredible structure, focusing heavily on Poe's brilliant and terrifying representation of the 7 stages of life. But first, I want to pose a question to you. Can wealth, power, and status truly build an impenetrable wall against the forces of nature? You know, it's a question we still grapple with today, isn't it? Our modern society often tries to use wealth as a shield against the ultimate reality of our own mortality. And in Poe's story, this very human tendency is taken to its absolute, horrifying extreme. It's the core conflict driving everything we're about to explore. Okay, let's dive right into our structural map for this explainer. First, we'll look at the illusion of control. Second, the fortress of denial. Third, the 7 stages of life. Fourth, the unstoppable ebony clock. And finally, the final confrontation.
So, Section 1, the illusion of control, wealth versus pestilence.
To truly decode Poe's visual vocabulary, we have to establish one absolutely crucial concept right off the bat. This entire story is a masterful architectural allegory. Now, an allegory operates on 2 levels, right? There are the literal events, and then there's the deeper symbolic meaning. In this tale, literally every simple brick, color, and shadow is designed to teach a philosophical lesson about the human condition. The literal story begins with Prince Prospero. While his dominions are being absolutely ravaged by a gruesome plague known as the Red Death, his response is, well, pure arrogance. He takes 1,000 of his knights and ladies and retreats into a secluded, impregnable, windowless abbey. They literally weld the iron gate shut. They decide with breathtaking selfishness that the external world could just take care of itself. Look at this stark juxtaposition. On the outside, we have a rapid, gruesomely fatal disease where victims suffer profuse bleeding and die within half an hour. But on the inside, Prospero provides buffoons, musicians, beauty, and wine. Because hey, what better way to ignore a gruesome plague than with a voluptuous masquerade ball? It's the ultimate artificial reality, constructed purely to distract the elite from the horrific truth right outside their walls. Moving on to Section 2, the Fortress of Denial, Escaping Mortality. Poe's 19th century Gothic tale taps into some very real historical anxieties. For centuries, rapid, incurable diseases, think the Black Death, absolutely terrified and collapsed societies. So the physical isolation of Prospero's abbey represents a psychological state of absolute denial. It kind of makes us ask, how does modern society still distract itself today? I mean, we might not weld ourselves into abbeys, but we certainly construct our own artificial realities to avoid confronting the fragility of human life. And this is a timeless theme. Decades later, Roger Corman's 1964 expressionist horror film adaptation, starring the legendary Vincent Price as the cruel Prince Prospero, proved just how horribly apt and resonant this story remains. The whole idea of wealthy centralists indulging in an absolute orgy of denial while a plague rages outside, it's a haunting reflection of societal inequality and escapism. This brings us to Section 3, the real core of our explainer, the 7 stages of life, the architectural arc. Now, what's really fascinating here is the physical layout of Prince Prospero's 7 colored ballrooms. Unlike traditional palaces with long, straight hallways where you can see from one end to the other, Prospero's apartments are irregularly disposed. There's a sharp turn every 20 or 30 yards. You can only ever see one room at a time. This structural fragmentation perfectly and chillingly mirrors the human experience of time. We can only experience the present moment. We cannot see our own future or what lies around the next corner of our lives. Let's look at how these rooms map directly to the human lifespan. The rooms progress from east to west, which follows the path of the sun, a classic symbol for the span of a day or a life. We start in the east with the blue room, representing birth, beginnings, and innocence. Next is purple, a rapid blend of calm and intensity, marking growth and the transition to maturity. Then green for youth and vitality. The 4th room is orange, the warmth and strength of adulthood. But then we turn a corner into white, suggesting fading vitality, age, and decline. The 6th is violet, a somber, much heavier tone marking the approach of finality. And finally, in the west, is the black room, death. Space here literally equals time, and movement through it is the irreversible progression of life. Within these incredibly symbolic rooms, the partygoers dance, but Poe explicitly describes them as a multitude of dreams and phantasms. They aren't behaving like rational people. They're taking their hue from the colored rooms, completely disconnected from truth. Think of it kind of like scrolling through a perfectly curated social media feed while the real world burns. It's a vivid, feverish dream in progress, an entire society engaging in a collective delusion to pretend that final room doesn't exist.
Section 4. The Unstoppable Ebony Clock. Time's Relentless Movement.
And that brings us to the seventh, westernmost room. It is shrouded in black velvet tapestries, but the stained glass windows are a deep blood red. It's so oppressive and ghastly that almost no one from the masquerade dares to step inside. It represents the collective human refusal to confront, well, mortality. And standing against the western wall of this room is a gigantic clock of ebony. Every hour, its dull, heavy, monotonous clang forces the orchestra to stop and the giddy dancers to turn pale. To truly grasp the horror of this clock, look at this fantastic insight from literary critic Richard Wilbur. He noted that in slang, we call the human heart a ticker, and that is exactly what Poe means here. In our minds, we can build fortresses, we can hiding dreams, but our hearts just keep ticking, binding us to time, biology, and mortality. Every chime of that ebony clock is a stark reminder that the dream must eventually end.
Section 5. The Final Confrontation. The Collapse of Illusion. The tension reaches its absolute peak when the clock strikes midnight. 12 strokes representing the end of time and the completion of the life cycle. The music stops completely, and in that terrifying silence, the revelers notice a new, uninvited guest. He's tall, gaunt, and shrouded from head to foot in the grave clothes of a plague victim. He represents waking temporal consciousness. He is the horrific reality of the outside world, finally breaching the fortress of denial. The prince is furious at this blasphemous mockery. He draws a dagger and literally chases this spectral figure. But notice the terrible irony of his path here. He rushes from the blue room, through the purple, the green, the orange, the white, the violet, all the way to the black room. Prospero is sprinting through the 7 stages of his own life just to meet his death, proving that all his attempts to pause time were completely, utterly useless. The climax is swift and terrifying. In the shadow of the ebony clock, the figure turns to confront Prospero. The prince drops his dagger and dies instantly. When the terrified revelers finally rush the intruder and tear away his mask and garments, they gasp in unutterable horror. There is no tangible body underneath. It's not a prankster. It is the Red Death itself, having finally breached the impregnable walls.
The story concludes with one of the most devastating lines in Gothic literature. And darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. The clock stops ticking, the fires go out, and the illusion is shattered forever. Poe leaves us with a haunting realization about the architecture of our own lives. As you step away from this explainer, I leave you with this final thought. No matter how beautifully we decorate our 7 rooms or how loudly we play the music, can any of us truly escape the ticking clock of our own mortality?
Knowledge grows through sharing. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to grow together.